I also, so welcome everyone, welcome to BEwell. Let me introduce Anna. I've got a little description of her here. So I've got it written down here. So we've got Anna Huwiler. Is that the right pronunciation? Huwiler?
Huwiler.
Oh, Huwiler. Okay, Huwiler, because Anna is from Davos in Switzerland. Okay, and let me just picking up where we've got her short bio here. Where are we? I'll find it. Okay, here it is. Anna is a leadership and life coach. She trained in ontological coaching with accomplishment, which one minute, someone else was entering, accomplishment coaching in the US, and has since worked with individuals and teams to create lasting transformational change. In her life and work, Anna loves to bring together leadership and play, depth and joy de vivere, joy of life. Yeah. Living in Davos, Switzerland, she takes her clients on alpine retreats or invites them to work on their leadership skills with her horse. Her favorite work is to support leaders over year-long commitments, allowing space for the change someone has craved for a long time and didn't think it was possible. And for them to discover they have all the tools and resources hidden within themselves all along. So today's topic is balancing the masculine and feminine in business. Very interesting because I think I'm a male, I'm masculine, but I work in a very feminine environment. I work in a language school, and we have, I think, 2 males and the rest are all female. So I can relate, I can hopefully relate, or I can be the actual, you can ask some questions on what it's like to work with a feminine environment. So Anna, maybe you can introduce yourself and we'll go into the topic.
Sure. Another introduction.
Oh, we can go straight to the topic, Anna.
I was thinking we could pretty much jump right to the straight to the topic, and yeah, if questions come up, I can address those. Yeah, it's interesting. I was thinking, I wasn't even thinking until I was like, well, what I'm going to speak about today, that I realized, oh, like I might need to define what I even mean by the feminine and the masculine energies. As in, it's more about energies and us having both of, like, we all have masculine and feminine energies. It's like a bit of a spiritual concept. But since there's a tendency for men to have a bit more of the masculine in general, not everyone, and the women to have a bit more of the feminine, I guess it kind of applies and probably, goes back to what you are curious about. I just wanted to put that so we don't have a misunderstanding or something, but I think it's probably going to tie together quite beautifully anyway. So yeah.
I think that's a good point there, Anna, because I think, thinking that even females have masculine energy. And I think we're seeing this more and more at the top end, where females are getting to the top of the pyramid in business, and they're having to show their masculine energy more. This is what I see. Obviously, this is, but again, it's open to discussion whether this is what's happening, or is it maybe the males that are showing more feminine traits and vice versa. I don't know. So what's your experience?
That's like a great point. I actually wanted to speak to as well. Like right at the beginning, we do live in a patriarchy, and again, this doesn't mean everything goes the same all the time, but the tendency definitely is that as a society, we tend to overexpress and value the masculine qualities more. And I want to speak to what masculine energy and feminine energy even is in this concept of like the spiritual masculine and feminine. Yeah, we have a baby moving back and forth a little sometimes. We are in a tiny, we're on a vacation in Portugal actually right now. So not in Davos, but we're on the beach and the apartment is small and I don't have great connection in the separate room like I thought I would, just so you know. So yeah, meet Aurelio. Cool, okay. Anyway, so That's a great point. You know, like right now, sometimes when we have this like classical work environment and a woman sort of wants to raise to the top, like typically we would see more of the masculine qualities expressed, not necessarily the healthy ones. And ultimately, we all tend to lose a little bit in the system as it exists, fostering so many of the like more masculine qualities. And
Give some examples of a masculine quality in your experience. What is a masculine quality?
yes, yeah. Let me actually, yeah. So no, I can speak to that later. I was thinking, yeah, so masculine energy, let's get to that. And I think it would be cool for, you know, if you see something, you could put that in the chat as well. I'm going to make a few examples so you start to get the distinction. So when we spiritually speak about the masculine energy, and some people even call it like alpha and omega, to, you know, move away from women and men even more, because we all do have both inevitably, and to have a successful business, we need to have both. And masculine would be rational and logical thinking, for example, showing up with like strength, inner and outer strength, challenge, being assertive, lots of like planning, following through, pushing, getting shit done, being independent, being purpose-driven. Also, like values could be integrity, honesty, rigor, responsibility. And I think you can start to see how patriarchy kind of fosters a lot of those values.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, I think about strength, integrity. I think JP's put some stuff in the chat. So
yeah.
these are kind of traits that we start to see as we get to the top of the business pyramid, is that in both males and females, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it's like just like as in being in a patriarchy, inherently valuing a lot of those like masculine qualities. That's what we tend to see as people raise to the top in a system that, in a sense, overvalues the masculine often. And so, yeah, exactly. Like, for example, in my life, I've had a lot of like masculine qualities I expressed as well. My first career was as an engineer, actually. And I just wanted to prove everyone I can do engineering. I didn't even love engineering very much, but I was like, oh, I'm going to prove I can do that. And so for example, for me, logical thinking was a great one. I constantly rationalized everything, express it like logically, could always find reasons, you know, and always sort of like justify why I would do X and not Y. And so those could be examples. And let me counter it with the feminine energy, maybe, so we have a fuller image, which would be more about like flowy, dynamic, intuitive, creative, inspired, making impossible stuff happen. It has a lot to do with cycles. Like our world tends to be very linear. You need to get from A to B, but the feminine is like going through cycles, having things emerge, nurture things, have them grow, rise, but then, you know, inevitably fall, demise, hibernation, endings, death. So we kind of have, maybe you can already start to see how we don't have a super great relationship in our society with those. But then there's stuff like all the feelings go into the feminine, whilst the masculine is like holding boundaries and sort of, in a sense, strong and straightforward. And the feminine would be heart, love, but also, you know, like hatred, downfall. It just sort of encompasses everything, and like it can come across as, for example, chaos. And it's interesting, right? Like as I was writing this down, preparing for today, I was thinking, oh, isn't it interesting how, for example, we think chaos is kind of bad and we want to remove chaos, but actually, you know, chaos can breed new stuff. Chaos can breed creative things. So that's part of the feminine. And then the last thing is like being really receptive, you know, to the environment, seeing how everything is connected and holding emotional space. So that's kind of more of the feminine qualities. To kind of,
So
that's sort of the.
when someone gets to like a position of leadership or top of the business pyramid, as we were saying, but the question is, excuse me, just trying to let someone else come in. Wouldn't there be a need for the feminine or the female to actually show their their traits more than actually just match or mirror the male traits. Wouldn't that make sense? I mean, when someone's going up the pyramid, to actually just go and match the masculine energy, or to show something completely different? Wouldn't that be more sort of advantageous for that person?
Like, of course, is what I like kind of thought about, since we're speaking about like entrepreneurs, and like very often actually, imagine you kind of try to raise to the top, like have a career, whatever. It doesn't even have to be the top, but you like want to you kind of buy into the systems largely sort of dominant. And then you sort of feel, oh, you want something else. For example, you want to be more true to yourself or more whatever expressed. You will come up against some like inauthenticity. And of course, in a perfect world, we would have them balanced in leadership in general. But we don't, and it's not about like you're right? It would be ideal, but the thing is, it often isn't, right? And I suspect that many of us actually choose out of the like classical career because we get disheartened about having to throw away so much of us to kind of succeed in the system in a sense. And again, this is a bit like overgeneralizing. It's not like all the businesses are the same at all, but like I suspect many of us who go and found their own business, in a sense, have a desire to create more of that balance I am speaking to today. To be like, okay, I want to, for example, I can speak about my own experience. One of my big desires was to not be attached to like having to work a certain number of hours. That to me always seemed bullshit. But instead, I wanted to work whenever I was the most efficient and then spend the time when I felt, for example, uncreative, low, or tired to either, for example, have a nap without consequences, or even that nap actually counts towards being way more productive again after, or I wanted to go play with the dog because that gives me new ideas, So there was a desire to bring up more of this like flow or, like change or like more of the chaos in a sense to then breed creativity. Just as an example, so this like very strictly being tied to time didn't serve me, like that quite masculine expression.
Does that approach go against having success at the top or being a leader? Having that approach that you were saying with the flow and the chaos and having your own time and your own schedule, is that going against the grain, against what people are expecting, how to have success in business? Is that what you're saying, Anna?
Let me check if I got the question.
Yeah, it's a question just to say that
Yeah.
what you did, your approach, your flow. This is what you did. I suppose this was your path.
Yeah, like a personal example, not necessarily the truth for everyone.
Did you achieve what you wanted to achieve? Did you achieve success, or did you achieve a position or something going your way?
Yeah, like this is after I left engineering and I started to, like find out how do I want to use my time. And I kind of, for example, it's been a desire of mine. And that's kind of another thing I want to speak to. Like, I'm not speaking about, all the, like maybe patriarchy, masculine things are bad, but like it all became about balancing, like very often we first have a desire to leave structures that kind of feel a bit suffocating. And then we kind of, some of us like, go ahead.
The feminine needs to leave the structures, because Elon Musk is actually the worst example of anybody living a structure. And chaos is his that's how
yeah, again, it's not about men and women, really. It's way more about a spiritual concept of the masculine energy being a lot of structure, sticking to stuff, being really clear, rational, and all of that, and the feminine being flowy, chaotic, and both of them, we can have too much of either of them. That's kind of what I wanted to speak to as well. Like the key is the balance and finding your personal balance that really serves you to create what you want. And the truth never is in either of them. And what I try to speak to is from my own experience. For example, I felt suffocated by some like really masculine structures, and I had a huge desire to move into more feminine structures. And then actually finding out, oh, you know, I need to sort of return, like what we sometimes tend to do is, oh, I need all of that or all of this. And to stick with time, a good example would be we become all rigorous, beat ourselves up, and get up at the same time every day, for example, no matter how sick we might be or something like that. And then we get so sick of that, we swing the other way and are like, oh, I'm just going to do whatever I feel like in the moment. And then likely not much gets done because we very often don't feel like doing something a bit uncomfortable. So, you know, whatever the balance for someone individually might be is to combine masculine energies and feminine energies in our individual like combination.
So
Does that make sense?
But there are also obligations, right? So the professional obligations, like you said, if you have to be in the office at 8 in the morning, yeah, that's your shift, let's call it. Whether you're a male or a female, you still have to be in the office, right?
Yes, of course. And it doesn't have to do anything with, again, like being a man or a woman. And
Exactly.
that it's just a mass. Go ahead. Sorry. Yeah.
It's like there are things. I'm just looking at my business where the difference is in the masculine and the feminine energy, or male and female, is like when we have meetings in communication, in when we have, like, I don't know, when there's a conflict in the company between a male and a female, or female and female, those kind of things, those moments there, talking about balancing energy. How does that sort of come, you know, how can we deal with that, let's say? Any thoughts on that, Anna, those points there?
Can you maybe like simplify the question a little bit so I'm really tracking what, you know, like I'm not sure I exactly got what you want. I want to really speak to what you're asking.
Sure. I'm working in a mainly female environment myself. I find that when we have meetings, myself, because being the male, I try to be very hasty and very straight to the point, and I don't want to beat around the bush, and I'll take the risks, you know, and I'll push the meeting a little bit further than maybe what we need to do, and I'll find that the female energy more encompassing and more accommodating, and those kind of things that sort of I don't have that in my energy. So my question is, how do we find that? How do we find the balance in those kind of situations?
So you're speaking about a situation where let me just make sure I got you this time. So you embrace more of the masculine in this situation, and then you work with women who in this situation embrace more of the feminine, or are you looking to have both within yourself?
I noticed that, I observed that in myself. I see those traits, that little bit of pushiness. Is that a masculine trait, being a little bit pushy, a little bit sort of hasty? Let's get to the point. Let's
no, I don't think so. I think you just make room for it for men. You don't make room for the women. And I am, I suppose, very feminist, anti-feminist, which sounds very weird. But I wasn't brought up in a traditional, I shouldn't say a traditional male society, because we actually are fishing, lumber, that sort of thing. And but we are also the glue that holds the rest of it together. Like I have 2 daughters fishing lobster today. I have one running a store. I have one who will be running heavy equipment. I have 7 daughters, and they all have their own businesses. So the idea that when we've had these discussions, basically it's where they have room to express themselves and the structures that are up there now. And one of the big things we're having discussion over is what the percentage of ChatGPT programming is feminine. When do we get time? Who's going to tend the kids while we put it in there? Because not traditionally in a lot of worlds, but in the Western world, American, European, male worlds, male dominated, considered male, I don't know. It is not, childcare doesn't have that much of a of a male input to it, but yet they all have to come up through it to be the men that they're going to be. And you know, it's very strange that I don't have time. My time is tide, sunrise, emergencies, boat ferries. The very least thing I look at is a watch until I hit the mainland, because I'm on a little island anyway. And then so I get the privilege of living in a non-male or female society that way. So I get to hunt, I get to have my kids, I get to be a whole person in a lot of ways until I hit Western society. And
are you saying, Sharon, that if you have to live as a woman, as a female, in a non-male society for you to actually express your masculine traits? Is that what you're saying?
I don't have masculine traits, they're all mine.
So there are no male, there are masculine or feminine?
No, it's just you guys decided to label them.
Okay. Anna?
Yeah, it's a label, it's a model. And we can always choose to not adhere to a model. Like we can choose we can say it's not for us and ditch it completely. Like what I talk about today is a version to view the world as. So, and it does meet a lot, like it tends to, that's why I wanted to speak to like how we kind of have both energies and all that in this model. And we can always choose to not like play by a model. Like ultimately we all play how we want to. And so, you know, if you share and say, oh, it's not for me, and for me it doesn't exist, that's completely fine. So that's kind of where I'm at, you know. So it's an idea, it's a concept. And we can use it to our advantage. And yeah, like again, if you feel like it doesn't serve you and it has nothing to do with masculine and feminine, in a sense it doesn't. That's why I said sometimes people call the energies alpha and omega, because they want to move away from this conversation altogether. So that's kind of what comes up from my experience.
Philippe has written something. Felipe, hi, has written something in the chat. It says, thinking about masculine or feminine energy only got me to mislabel colleagues as gay when they were not. They were not. So I tried to stay away from that concept of masculine and feminine.
Yeah.
Hey, hello.
So that, I mean, again, it's a choice really, you know, and for me personally, for example, it has really served me to, for example, moving to more what I view, or, you know, like in my realm, let's say my people, not just me, myself, to embrace more of the qualities that are not necessarily encouraged to sort of show more of, you know, and so I chose to kind of, that's sort of like one of the things on the list I gave you, right? We could talk about this as something that can serve people. And again, sometimes it doesn't. And then you're free to ditch pretty much.
But
I know what Sharon said, the masculine and the feminine is the way we see the world, is our perspective, and maybe there isn't masculine and feminine, there's just energy. But in reality, in generalizing, but when we are in a company, in an office, in a meeting, in conflicts, there are different approaches. And there are feminine or females who have masculine recognized traits, let's call them, whether they're assertive or aggressive or demanding or pushy or whatever. Those are the ones that we've always seen as masculine traits, but there are females who do have those traits. Do you have any thoughts on this? Maybe we can help Anna along with the conversation on your experience.
One of my thoughts, you know, as a leader, and Gary, you brought this to mind for me as you were talking about leading meetings, is if we're able to recognize what our team members need from us, and sometimes that's a masculine energy approach, or sometimes it's a female energy approach, and it may be different for each member of our team. When I was leading, I was in my early 30s, you know, running a school. I recognized, and we did actually, it was great because we did personality testing for our entire team. And so it gave me great insight on each of the leaders who I was working with, so that I could approach when I'm in one-on-one meetings. I mean, I had one leader who I knew I had to spend the first 10 minutes of the meeting talking about her children and grandchildren, because that allowed her to then be more effective and more productive in the rest of our meeting. Whereas another person didn't want to talk about anything about the number except the numbers. And so we would dive right into that. So my point of saying this is to reinforce what I have heard Anna say, is it's finding a balance between these energies. Sharon, I think that's what you've said exactly, is that, yeah, this is just who I am. It has nothing to do with, for you, with masculine or feminine. This is just who I am. I'm balancing the parts of me and being the most effective person I can be with and in the environment I'm in. So Sharon, when you go to the Western civilization, you may not change, but you're very aware of how they may be viewing you. But when you're in your culture, you know, you're perfect because you can be comfortable with who you are and how you're reacting and responding in situations. So from, again, since you asked for my experience as a leader is that I'm most effective when I'm able to balance within myself my approach to different situations. Gary, are there times that I have to be full on aggressive masculine? Absolutely. If we've got more than a fire drill, if we've got a fire and we've got to, you know, put it out or do whatever, yeah, we're going to do that. But if it's a discussion about strategy and I need everybody's position and opinion, then I better not be aggressive, because nobody's going to talk to me if I'm aggressive. Does that make sense?
Any comments on that? Michelle, do you want to make a comment on that?
No, that completely resonated. Yeah, couldn't have said it better myself. Yeah. We're all dual energy, whether that we want to label it. We label it for simplicity sometimes, as long as we don't attach to it. It's just hold everything lightly in that sense. But yeah, I love that. But like you said, for your team, for your people, for your environment here, I did my homework before and it was like, yeah, how am I going to show up today? You know, what's my intention? You know, what energy am I bringing? I don't think I need to be outcome focused and assertive today, but I'm here as a listener. I want to be empathetic. I want to be thinking, reflective, maybe get some creative ideas, you know, push some buttons within myself and share what I can. Is that more the feminine energy? Yeah, maybe that's what it is in that moment. So it's just about being aware of our strengths. When do I need to be this, or when do I not need to be? When do I need to notice that in self and in others for the greater good? It's all just for more. Yeah. Simple as that. Thanks,
Michelle.
Gary.
Thank you. I've got Philippe before Michael. Philippe had his hand
up. If it's all right, if I might go before Philippe, if Gary.
Okay. Yeah, one of you. I see you both got your hands up. So
Anna, JP, Sharon, Michelle, Gary. I so love the podcasts, the series that you're running. They're absolutely amazing. Anna, you got remarkable. Yeah, but Anna, you got remarkable experience for your age on anima and animus aspects. It's quite phenomenal. There is a saying that a person is born for this, Joan of Arc, and hands down, you destined for greatness. You really are. Carry on and
thank you. You got an insight into this topic?
Well done,
Michael?
on your presentation.
What's your insight? You got a question or an insight?
Well, Philippe. No, well, I actually just wanted to introduce Philippe as he had his thumbs up, and I asked you if he could join the group. So
Sure. He's in the group. Okay, so let's go back to Anna. Anna, so what are those? Are there any more sort of thoughts around that? I mean, as JP said, that there isn't a male or female. It's just you, and there's just moments when you have to bring one trait to the forefront, then the other, to actually understand. I think, yeah, it's the playing, it's the balancing act that you do to actually to be inclusive in meetings, in communication. I think that's what JP was saying.
Yeah, and I think I might, at the risk of repeating myself a little, it's a model, you know, and we might notice, oh, it really serves me to bring up some qualities I tend to dismiss, or, you know, like largely people appreciating, for example, structure a lot. And I beat myself up with structure. What might be a different entrance point, you know, like what might be, and ultimately it really is more of a choice and a model we can play by if it serves us, but we don't have to. And what I find in general, very often models can help us for a bit, and then we need to kind of modify, make it our own, and kind of find what's the benefit beyond the actual model. So that's kind of where I'm at. And I found I really loved his share. Thank you. Because that's really when stuff comes to life, right? Like I remember, for example, my coach training, we started with those like really foundational models. And it was really beautiful to see how people would develop from the models, but then it's almost like something to anchor back in. So that's kind of what comes out. And, you know, like with clearly a lot of experience, you can go in and start and play really fluidly, you know. But something you shared a bit earlier, when you said, oh, I noticed I might get a little stuck in something that seems to be more of the masculine, you know, like this might give you an entrance point next time where you're like, oh, I see myself do that. So do I remember, oh, some of the so-called in this model more feminine traits could be this, this, and this. So I might bring some more empathy. I might bring a bit softness or curiosity in the moment, you know, and then I bring it back and bring more of like the quote unquote masculine again. And then the model served you and you can benefit and kind of go forward and develop some of your skills. That's pretty much the choice you can make.
Is this something that's nurture? Or is it nature? Is it something that's part of you, the way you are? Or is it something that you can work on to actually bring more of one or the other into your interactions?
Let me think. Like,
am I making these questions
about? I love Sharon. I got a bit distracted because I really loved Sharon's question. I don't think I have never thought about it being nature or nurture, as in not sure if it's really relevant, you know, in terms of, oh, we are in a meeting, where do we go from there? More like something like a potential stepping stone and something, yeah, JP said it's both, it's probably true. It's just sort of like, again, it's more like experiential, you know, like how we might view the world as, again, like model, right? Like we choose to view through this lens serves us to change something or get more of what we want in life, in leadership, in teams, you know, all of that. In terms like, is the balance we have in the world now working? I think it's not a great balance, to be honest. You know, I think it's skewed towards a lot of like pressure, a lot of logical thinking, a lot of like, yeah, of the so-called masculine traits in this model. I mean, we don't have a great balance.
Yeah, I was just sort of reflecting.
No, let's pause it here. Yeah.
Feminine sort of traits that we were talking about before, empathy and compassion and so on. Is it something that someone can learn to do, or is it just a part of them? That was my reflection there. It was just a thought on that, because there are things that are inside of you. That's the way you are. I have 3 children. One of my 3 children, the son in the middle who's 19, he's such a compassionate guy, empathic guy. I just think, where did he come from? He's not me, and he's not my wife, but he's got it inside of him. That's the way he is. I've got the other 2. I don't know if I could actually teach them that compassion or that attention or empathy. And that was my reflection, is it something that we can actually work on, or is it just a part of us? That's the way we are.
I think it really depends on what we want. Like, you know, imagine your kids, the 2 ones, like you just described, the 2 that are maybe in a sense a bit less compassionate by, if you want, like however nature, like at this point, I guess you cannot say it's purely nature, because they had a lot of influence from outside, but they are wherever they're at, you know, and imagine they have a true desire to become more compassionate. I would say that's absolutely possible. You can kind of develop skills you want to at any time and become a bit like a sort of, I struggle to say like a better human, but maybe like a more expressed human, you know, like, so not expressing, for example, compassion a lot, and then imagine they come up against situations where they wish they had more compassion. Of course, they can develop more compassion with practice. That's how I see the world anyway.
Okay, Philippe, I think he's still got his hand up. Let me see if he's got a question. Philippe, have you got a question or an insight or a thought?
Yes, so I just want to circle back to what JP was saying before, because what he explained about having to spend the first 10 minutes of a meeting with someone discussing kids, or I have studied that when working as an engineering manager, when working as a leader or a manager, and the way I've been told it is as communication styles, nothing. I've never seen this related to masculine or feminine, but more about there are like 4 colors. I don't know. It's some theory, communication styles theory, where you have people that are more assertive, less assertive, more empathic, less empathic, and what he was describing is in this model is the green color. I'm not sure if you are familiar with this theory, but I do believe that big part of this can be taught, and we all have a bit of each color, but one of them is more predominant, and when you are in stress situations, you fall back into different communication styles. And yeah, I just wanted to say that this is something that I have studied, and it has nothing to do with gender or masculine or feminine energies, at least the way I've been told.
Yeah, it's a different model. You know, I, for example, work with a lot of other models as well. And I have heard a little bit of the color code model. I don't know what it's, sorry, I have like a sort of superficial knowledge. What many of those models, in a sense, do is they tend to limit, and we are kind of almost resigned to, oh, I am the assertive one or something. And in my experience and the work I am involved in, like the leadership work I'm in, is about moving beyond the default, moving beyond, you know, if you want that, again, you know, like making someone become something they don't really want, forget about that. But imagine you getting a lot of reflections of being very assertive, not necessarily you, but someone. And you notice this has an impact. This limits you with other possibilities. And you say, oh, I want to sort of soften, for example. And then, you know, you might get a leadership coach or something and work on that. That's, again, absolutely possible. And yes, it makes total sense that in, let's say, a very stressful situation, you kind of fall back on being super assertive. But in my experience over time, you can expand more and more and hold more and gain greater capacity in being something else if you then choose and desire to do so. Does that make sense?
Yep, definitely.
So I had a question for you from Sharon, if I could read that. Sharon writes, so what does a fully rounded human look like? And how can we build them with only one side having access to input? Can you clear that question, Sharon, a little bit better maybe for Anna? What do you mean?
For me, I think it's really clear, actually. But okay, you can speak more to it if you want to, Sharon. Of course, I don't want to take away.
As a person who brings up children, as a person who works part-time, whatever I do, my income isn't really up there. My access to the internet in '89, it was free. We were actually bought out because there was no internet back then, and to speak of. We went in through the Library of Congress. They followed us around. They gave us free internet and all that sort of thing, and we had input. We talked to on bulletin boards about medical breakthroughs and different child rearing things and different tribes, you know, European tribes, all the indigenous people all over the world type thing. It was a huge community of open ideas and sharing. And then all of a sudden it became a business model, and it was flashing you an ad in the middle of your text thing. And pretty soon they traded me a computer for signing off on my share of this little internet thing. But they didn't, then they charged me for using it online. So this freedom to speak and to talk from the place where I work is nowhere near the same allowance or access as when somebody goes to a business building and they're provided with all this stuff and they get to put in all the things. When I play a shooter game, if I speak, I'm shot by my own team members. If I do not speak, I can play hours as long as I have a male character. There are some things that we have taught people that are very anti, like I have so many wonderful men in my life who are thoughtful. My husband does not like shooting things. Not that I like shooting things either, but I mean, when we have a deer infestation here, I literally have to go get my nephews and my daughter who has a bow license to go shoot these things because my husband's heart gets hurt because he names them. So, I mean, there's no rhyme or reason except for these false boxes that we keep on saying feminine and masculine. And it's just so scary that women are probably the ones that promote it the most. Because they cannot get out of their own box, they promote the men that they're behind to get through for them. And it's a ridiculous sport.
Yeah, I would agree a little bit there with Sharon as well. When the male tries to show his feminine side or trait, so there is also this, like, we don't have males anymore.
My husband's a lumberjack, a lobster fisherman, a carpenter. He is everything, and he's 6'4", and he is feared. But not that deer doesn't scare him. That deer isn't scared of him, nor is the cat.
Is he a full human being, as you were saying? Is he a complete human, as you were asking the question too?
He's probably a lot closer than most people because he brought up 7 daughters. He was, and he took them fishing, and he took them hunting. They were invited to be on the gun team because they beat the gun team. They're hikers. They go around the world seeing things. So yeah, I do think that he's got a lot of more rounding than most people did, because we also didn't send our kids to school. What
about you, Sharon? What about you? Are you a rounded person to it at that point?
Well, I was cadet of the year and queen of the school when I was 17. I'm 66 now. I used to have bright red hair and an afro, so yeah. And the same year I was the orienteer for the mat for the cadets. And
Sharon, you're only 56. I'm 57.
I'm
You
66.
can't be 56.
I'm 66.
Oh, okay.
Anyway,
so
Michael, stop.
Because I got to live in this environment, and where you did what you needed to do according to the weather, according to the season, according to the whatever. I think I got to be a lot rounder as far as things because of what the necessity or the environment. But I think as soon as you say business and dog eat dog world or whatever we want to call it, then we made this feminine and masculine thing. Because in the natives, there's 5 different. You want to be a male one time, you're fine, and then you go off and be a warrior. There's just
Sharon,
whatever.
It's all those turkey tails and lion's mane mushrooms you're finding on that island. It's giving you brain power.
I haven't eaten them, man. So that's not that. But I did understand that's where ivermectin comes from. I worm my horse with ivermectin. I do not use it in any of these other things because
let's not go into Sharon's private life, Michael.
Yeah.
Let's go back into sort of marketing and branding and all that kind of stuff. So, Anna, any thoughts on that, on marketing and branding with the feminine and the masculine leverages, let's call them?
Yeah, can I just with one sentence speak to what Sharon shared?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, like Sharon, I encourage you to pitch the model, really. You don't have to kind of rub up against it if it doesn't serve you. Choose something that serves you to, become the more rounded human being you want to be. Not saying you're not rounded or anyone in your like the way I see, there's always more roundedness evolve into. It's never finished. I'm sure you know that too. So, you know, if you feel like, oh my God, and you know, it might be worth to look at what sort of where the rub is, why it comes up for you. So there might be gold in that. But otherwise, and that actually goes into the marketing thing. Like my own experience in terms of, you know, like how we might employ those, like the model in terms of feminine and masculine is the more you find your personal balance, the more authentic your marketing becomes and the more you will find your people. That's pretty much like how my own experience, or it depends on the kind of business you want, but do you want, like, especially as a coach, you probably want to find the people who really are your people. So most, I guess, I would say most marketing approaches that are kind of like, oh, just do this and that, apply recipe X, are not fully authentic. And it's the same with the masculine and feminine energies,
Like a niche.
as in, huh?
Like a
What was
niche.
it?
A
Yeah,
niche.
like I would say the niche is you as a coach, especially. The niche is your unique expression. Again, like, you know, speaking of that rounded human, the more rounded you become, the more naturally you're probably going to get in touch with the people who are yours to get in touch with. That's how I would sort of, in a very like simple, broken down, and we can expand on that, but that's kind of like how my experience has been. But it depends very much on the kind of business you want as well.
Good point there, and I think it's a good point. We can come back to that, I think. As Michael's got a question for you, or a question about, or a reflection on marketing. Michael, you
Yeah. Anna, you are extremely bright person. You process information rather quickly. And I would like to know, in accordance to the aspect of duality, and especially with the high octane world that we live in, how do young people survive, especially when it's and I'm using the word because I'm actually second questioning myself, but how do young people under the age of 35 stop trying to validate their low self-esteem due to past experiences and just live life? That's my question.
Do you think it's tied to below 35?
Excuse me.
I think that's a pretty
Well,
human
I'm an old duck. There's Gary and Sharon
34
and
years
most of the
old.
people here, so it's okay.
Also, I'm older than
Ah.
35, so I know you insist for me to be
Yeah.
really young, but I'm
Well,
not like I'm
which
scratching
means
from
you've
40,
got a
so.
lot of experience. So how do people under the age of 35 survive in society and embrace duality with anima and animus in accordance to sheep versus wolves, God is dead, all that, those other type of philosophies? How can they find a balance within their own family and in society, but also overcome diversities to be successful? That's what I was asking.
Yeah, I actually love JP's comment, and I think maybe he should speak to that, because I think he shared earlier that he's coaching youth, while I am usually coaching people older than me. So is he still here? Oh yeah, that he jumped to on the screen. So maybe you want to speak to that actually, because yeah, you just said you work with young people.
I coach adults as well, but having spent
I got that, but like specifically
having spent my
young people as well.
having spent my career 25 years in schools, I also coach teens and young adults, and like I said in the stream, helping them find purpose larger than their pain, and really stepping out of the pain. We truly help them really dig into what are their values and how do they most want to feel, and identifying those 6 essential emotions that then they build their life around. And that begins the process of shifting into a creative structure out of a problem-based structure that we all live in, but into a creative structure where I'm focused on what it is I'm going to create just because I love it. Not because it solves a problem, not because somebody else will think that's cool, but just because I love it. And that work we've found, when you get them focused on fulfillment, and again, a purpose beyond pain, the crap just falls off. I mean, it's amazing.
I think well put, JP, well put. I think it's something that I've noticed that, again, I use a lot of these strategies and these reflections and observations with my children. Having one who's 24, one who's 19, and one who's 15, I've got a great playground to actually, work on them. And the one who's 19 was the one that actually I went through a similar process that you were saying, JP, with him. Was completely lost, feeling the pressure, having to actually validate himself and to others, what others wanted of him. So
he was having to fit into somebody else's world.
Exactly.
That's the biggest stressor teens and young adults have. They know that world isn't theirs, and they don't know how to make that shift. And that shift in structures is life-changing.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think that's a great point. I think you do some good work over there. But I've noticed that as well with my son Oliver, who actually needed this understanding that you got to live a fulfilled life rather than just chasing after salaries, a job, a position, an identity. And so whether that's actually something sunk in, we don't know. We'll see later on, but it was a conversation I had about that as well. So I think we're all on the same lines here. I mean, what are we taking away? I'm taking away that there is no masculine or feminine. There's just there's a rounded entity, a rounded being that uses the left or the right or the positive or the negative or the energies to be the best person or the best being they can be in their interactions. That's what I'm taking away. Sharon, what are you taking away from this hour together?
I'm taking away that maybe there's a lot of work to do. There's a lot more work to do on and knowing what a balance is, and balancing is more important than saying feminine and masculine, because it's really according to where you are of what those traits actually are. Yeah.
Anyway, Michael, what are you taking from this hour together?
Well, in essence, it doesn't matter if we're not there yet. One day we'll be there, and we can embrace our inner female warrior, our inner Joan of Arc, that we're born for this, like Anna is born for this, to push this movement in duality. That's what I'm taking away from it. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much.
Michelle?
Yeah, first of all, thank you, Anna. I love it when my mind allowed to expand on different things, hearing different people's perceptions. The big thing about labels, I think, for me, is we've just got to be aware of who we're with. If labels, they're for tins, but we get to choose. So I suppose what I'm taking away is we have a choice. We have a choice. Constantly, we have a choice. We just need to, keep awake, notice them, and that's it. Thanks, Gary. Love these.
Yeah, keep awake, be aware, and observe yourselves. I think. JP?
So the thing that I take away is it actually isn't a duality. The duality is a construct of our ego, our conscious mind. And the key, as I think that's what I read from Sharon as well, the key truly is to rise above the duality, be aware of it, and see what's needed. To see what's needed in that moment, in the environment, in that situation, wherever it may be, where you can have the greatest positive impact. Because the duality exists when we choose to allow it to exist. And so when we literally rise up as from a super conscious view and see it and see what is needed, because that's our intuitive nature to know what's needed in that moment. That it isn't about duality.
Brilliant. Great, JP. Philippe?
For me, this meeting was a bit of a surprise. So I think I came with a bit of a wrong mindset. I'm sorry, Anna, if I went on the wrong path or something. But yeah, I enjoyed the conversation a lot, and I have a pretty similar feeling to what JP just mentioned. All these labels exist, all these ways of putting people in buckets are there, but you don't need to feel forced to play along with it, and you just need to find whatever works for you and whatever makes your relations with other people work well. And
brilliant. Mariam, do you have any thoughts on this, or are you there? No, she's not there. So anyway, as we're coming to the end, I want to finish off on time so people don't just jump off. I want to say thank you to Anna for your time and your knowledge and everything. And if anyone wants to reach out to Anna, maybe you can put your link or your website or something on the chat, Anna, so they can contact you directly. The recording of this session is on the YouTube, so you guys can go back and have a look at it if you want to, or you want to use it or whatever. It's there. These sessions spaces are held every week from 5 to 6 my time, Italian time. So if you've got time and you want to come along, you find the topic interesting, come along like JP did today, just out of the blue, and like Philippe did out of the blue. And so come along, bring other people, other coaches who want to also share their insights, their journey. And if you see things on LinkedIn, make comments or whatever regarding the moments shared together. Okay. So if there's nothing more, no questions, whatever, thank you very much for your time, for coming along, and hopefully I'll see you next week. Next week, we're going to be talking about the relationship coach, a person called John Kenny, who is the relationship coach. Again, we're going to be looking at relationships in business and in life and how we can improve. So hopefully we'll see you next week. Anna,
Cheers, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.